So tonight's Solaris Thursday is all about scant quarter inches and how to achieve that. What I'm going to show tonight will work on any machine as far as that goes. But I want to talk a little bit first about a scant quarter inch. So a scant quarter inch is somewhere between 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch. There is really and truly no defined measurement for a scant quarter inch. I understand some patterns call for a scant quarter inch, but I have to say, I do not use scant quarter inches for anything. I'm a math person, okay? I'm a numbers person, and it's one reason I love sewing and quilting so much, because a lot of it is about math. Because if you ask one person, what's the measurement for a scant quarter inch, you'll get one answer. If you ask someone else, you'll get another one. So I personally never use a scant quarter inch. However, that being said, it's really easy to achieve a scant quarter inch. The general consensus for a scant quarter inch is 1 or 2 needle widths inside of a quarter inch seam. So I'm going to swap to my other camera and we're going to see what that looks like. First, I'm going to do a full quarter inch seam. I was digging through my UFOs and I found these quilt blocks right here. I'd made quite some time ago, this over 3 years ago in Colorado. Okay, it's a 4-strip rail fence type of thing is what this one's going to be. And I'd actually done this when I was president of the Serger Club in Fort Collins, Colorado. So I pieced it with quarter inch seams on a serger. I strip pieced it and then cut them so I have square blocks. So now I'm going to finish this on my sewing machine, and I've got 16 blocks left to set together, and this is what it looks like. This is how much of it I have pieced. Okay. These were 2.5 inch strips off of a jelly roll I'd gotten somewhere. I don't remember where. It's been too long ago. So what I have attached to the Solaris tonight is the digital dual feed foot, and I have the quarter inch piecing foot attached to that. The quarter inch plate made especially for the digital dual feed foot. I'm going to swap my camera so you can see what's going on, and we're going to get started. So, digital dual feed foot. Now I'm going to, so it shows up really well on the camera, I am going to adjust my brightness level down so it doesn't overpower the sensors in the camera. This is something I have learned to do this year, among many other things, over the last year. So I'm going to turn my lights down to 1. And the screen brightness I'm going to turn down to 1 also. Okay, so that should show up better for everybody watching out here. So, I have my machine set. I'm using the straight stitches in menu number 1. That's the utility stitches. And I'm using the center straight stitch middle. Okay, now with that plate on there, see that right there, this has the quarter inch guide on it. That will give me a quarter inch seam, for instance. I'm going to do a quick quarter inch seam on these joining blocks here. And the whole purpose of this, we're going to compare the two so you can see the difference between a quarter inch and a scant quarter inch seam. Okay, here we go. This is a quarter inch seam, and I want my length down to 1.8. When I piece quilt pieces and quilt blocks, I turn my stitch length down to 1.8, when you do that, you don't have to tie off at the beginning or the end of the seam. Okay, so I'm going to make sure both of my ends meet. These have already been pressed. Okay, so that is a full quarter inch seam, as you can see right here. Quarter inch seam. Okay, now I'm going to grab the next two, and when I'm positioning blocks together where I'm going to have a bunch, I position them and then I put one wonder clip on the side. That's the side I'm going to sew. That way I can get a whole stack of blocks set together, and that way I don't have to do them one set at a time. You know what I mean. So next I'm going to do a scant quarter inch seam. And to do a scant quarter inch, if you'll see right here, it says LR shift. So I want to move the needle that way. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then I'm going to do a seam. So you can, for a scant quarter inch, you can do 1 to 3 little clicks, and that will give you a measurement between a quarter inch and 1/8 of an inch. If you happen to make a quilt and they call for scant quarter inches, because that's the way they've designed it, that's how you do it. Okay, and cut. And now I'm going to hold these two up next to each other, and you will see, hopefully on camera here, let's see here, there we go. It's just like maybe a 1/16 of an inch in towards the raw edge from the full quarter inch seam. And that's what a scant quarter inch is. And quite honestly, that's all there is to it to do a scant quarter inch. Now, that being said, I am now going to go back and sew this scant quarter inch back to a full quarter inch so it matches all my other stuff. Like I said, maybe some of you know this, some of you don't. I was an international educator for AccuQuilt before I came to Baby Lock. And in the quilting world with AccuQuilt, there is no such thing as a scant quarter inch. Simply because there is no actual measurement for that. It's something that you eyeball. When I make a quilt, I want full quarter inch seams. That way it's easy to tell if you're off somewhere. At a scant quarter inch, you never know. Now when I hold it up this time, you're going to see the difference between the two. Okay? You can see that double line of stitching. And I'm going to turn my light back up now, so this will show up better. Let's see here. Screen number 4, go back up to 3, screen, back up to 3, and OK. But if you can see that now, and I'm even going to turn this even a little bit differently here. There we go. You can see that double row of stitching right here. So the line closest to the raw edge is a scant, but you can see it's basically the width of a machine needle away from the quarter inch line. There you go. That's the difference between a 1/4 inch and a scant 1/4 inch. Okay. Now when I come back over here to this other screen, I'm reading comments here. Hi B. Oh, you're welcome, Sandra. Hi Linda. Hi Lana. Yes, Lana. A scant 1/4 inch is basically 1/16 of an inch. Or another way to look at it, it's basically your needle. You want to be able to lay a needle between the two, a 1/4 inch and a scant 1/4 inch, and it should fit right in between those two seams. That's the easiest way I can tell you what a scant 1/4 inch is. Hi Ellen. Hi Kathy. Hi Ernestine. Now, maybe there's some of you out there that use a scant 1/4 inch. If you do, would you please type in the comments section how and why you use a scant 1/4 inch. Hi Carol. I know in hand piecing, I remember my Meemaw, she would actually, they didn't do full 1/4 inch seams all the time when they were doing hand piecing. Yes, Ernestine, on the 1/4 inch, that is the needle center position. That is correct. Another way I could see using, because I'm just sitting here thinking right now, but I could see using a scant 1/4 inch to possibly do a French seam. However, for me, if I'm making a garment and I want French seams in it, usually the seam allowance for a garment is 5/8 of an inch. So what I do when I do a French seam, first I do a 1/4 inch seam, and then when I turn it to encase the raw edges of that seam for the French seam, I finish with a 3/8 of an inch seam, and that way that it's all encased inside fabric that way. But this would be technically another way you could do a French seam. First do a scant 1/4 inch and then turn it and do a full 1/4 inch to do a French seam. That would be another way you could accomplish that. Oh, yes, Michelle. So I have went down as low as 1.6. I will do a 1.6 stitch length if, for instance, I'm not going to have intersecting seams to lock it. So what I mean by that, like this seam right here. Oops, let me move my camera. Hold on. Let me get to a different camera here. There we go. Okay. So you can see this seam, this serger seam here, the seam I just did went across that seam. And when that happens, you do not need to backstitch to secure a seam. Now out here at the edge, however, if I was not going to sew anything this way, but I am, but if that was going to be a finished edge of a quilt top without a border on it, you want to stay stitch. Does everybody know what that is? You just take a straight stitch, set it to 2.0 or 2.5, and you just do a line of stitching a 1/4 inch or 1/8 of an inch from the raw edge all the way around the perimeter of your quilt. If you're not using borders, that locks in the seams and you won't stretch them apart while you're quilting it. I hope that made sense. As you can see, when you have a full 1/4 inch seam, regardless of which machine you're sewing on, you can take your project to as many machines as you want and come out with the same 1/4 inch seam. If you start doing scant 1/4 inch seams, it's not always going to work out like that. So I can't emphasize enough, to me, it's extremely important to use full 1/4 inch seams, especially in quilt making, because that's how you'll get your pieces and your blocks and your seams to line up perfectly. Because if you stop and think about it, okay, so would you rather do the math adding a 1/4 inch to everything, or would you rather do the math adding, let me think here, it would be 4/16, 3/16 of an inch to everything? Think about it. I don't think there's many quilting rulers out there for rotary cutting that actually has 1/16 of an inch markings on it. And if they do, you're going to need I would need a magnifying glass to ever line up a 1/16 mark on the edge of the fabric accurately.